Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be looking at how to design a pricing table, which can play an important role for companies that offer products and services and plans. And a perfect example would be web hosting services. So with that said, let's jump straight into our Elementor design canvas to get started. Okay, so coming down to Elementor design canvas, the first thing I want to do is to get rid of the header and footer. Now for us to do this, we simply need to come down to the settings icon to select that. And in here for our page layout, we want to select default to change this to Elementor canvas. Now in here we can see it says no header, no footer, just Elementor. Now once we've done that, we want to click on update. Next, we want to click on refresh just to make sure we have a blank canvas to work with. Now, if you already have a well-designed header and footer, there will be no need for this. Just for the sake of this video, we want to have a blank canvas to work with. Okay, so coming down to this design page, we are going to be making reference to this from time to time just to make sure we're still on course with what we are doing. Alright, so coming down to our design canvas, we want to add in a new section just as we have here. So I'm just going to come back to our Elementor design canvas, and in here we want to click on add new section. And for our structure type, we want to select one column. Now the next thing we want to do is to add in a height to this section in here. Now to do this, we simply need to come down to height and we want to select default to change this to mean height. Now by default, you should be having this set to 400, but what we want to do is to change this to 320. So I'm just going to highlight this and want to change this to 320. Now the next thing we want to do is to add in a background image to this section. Now to do that, we simply need to come down to style, and for our background type, we want to select classic, and for our image, we want to choose image. So I'm just going to select this image and click on insert media. Now we can see we have our image in here, but we don't have this appearing as we want it to. So in here we can see this looks more elegant. So coming down to our design canvas, for our positioning, we want to change this to center left. And for our attachment, we want to leave this to default. And for our repeat, we want to change this to no repeat. And for our size, we want to make this auto. Now in here we can see we have this darkened more than what we have here. So I'm just going to come down to background overlay, and for our background type we want to select classic, and for our color we want to select this icon in here and change this to black. Now we can choose to darken this more with our opacity. So the higher we increase this, the darker it gets. So let's say we want to choose 0.65, and we can see how this appears as. Now the next thing we want to do is to add in our text into this section. Now to do this, we simply need to click on this icon to go back to our widget and want to drag and drop our heading into this column. Now we want to change this to fast and secured web hosting. Okay, so once we've done that, we want to style our text in here. So I'm just going to come down to style, and for our text color, we want to change this to white. And for our typography, we want to select this pencil icon. And for our font family, we want to change this to Poppins. So I'm just going to select that. And for our font size, we want to make this 48 pixels. And for our font weight, we want to make this 600. So I'm just going to select 600, and we're done with this text. So the next thing we want to do is to add in this powerful yet simple. So I'm just going to come back here and then drag and drop our text into this column. So I'm just going to make this powerful yet simple. Now moving on to styling our text in here, I'm just going to come down to style. And for our text color, we want to change this to hashtag C1EBF8. So once we've done that, we want to come down to typography to select this pencil icon. And in here, we want to make our font family to Roboto. So I'm just going to select Roboto. And for our font size, we want to make this 24 pixels. And for our font weight, we want to select 600. And that's pretty much it for our top section in here. So I'm just going to click on update. Now, one last thing we can do in here is to add in a space between these two widgets. So we can simply click on this icon, and in here for our widget space, by default, we should have this to 20 pixels. So we can change this up to say 35 pixels, and we can see how this appears as. So let's just reduce this to 30 pixels, and this looks a whole lot better. So I'm just going to click on update. Now moving on to creating our pricing table, if we come down to our design canvas, we can see how this appears as. Now this is divided into two sections. In here we have our first section, and this is the second section. So coming down to our design canvas, I'm just going to come down to add new section and want to select this as our structure type. Now the next thing we want to do is to add in a spacing between these two columns. So I'm just going to click on edit section and come down to advanced. So I'm going to unlink all values here and want to make this 100 pixels to the top. Definitely you can make adjustments to this based on your personal preference. So if you wanted to go for 50 pixels, you can just put that in there. So for the sake of this video, we're just going to go with 100. Now the next thing we want to do is to add in inner sections into this column. So I'm just going to drag and drop this inner section into this column and we can see how this appears as. Now the next thing we want to do is to change the background color in here, just as we have here. So I'm just going to come down to our Elementor design canvas and I'm going to click on edit column and want to come down to style. And for our background color, we want to select classic. Now for our color, we want to click on this icon and in here, we want to change the background color to hashtag 002B44. Okay, so once we've changed our background color, we want to add in our text into this column. So I'm just going to come down to our widgets and I'm going to drag and drop our heading into this column. And just as we have here, we have a space. So I'm just going to start off with this. And this will be our empty space in here. And we can simply duplicate this column on the number of plans you have on your website. Coming down to our text, we're just going to paste in this code in here. Now, I'll be leaving the links to everything mentioned within this video in the description box down below. Now, what this code actually does is to give us more customizations on the text we have in here. So in here, we have our font size equal to, so whatever height we increase this to, that is what it becomes. So let's say, for example, we made this one, we can see how the text in here changes. And if we made this 2, we can see how that appears 3, 4, 5, 6. So for the sake of this video, we're going to make this 10 and we can see how this appears as. Now, if you don't understand this, you can just copy this and paste it wherever you want to. Okay, so let's come down to styling this text in here. So I'm just going to come down to style and for our text color, we want to change this to white. Now I want to come down to typography. So I'm just going to select this pencil icon and in here for our font family, we want to select Roboto and for our font size, we want to make this 20 pixels. Okay, so in here we can see whatever we customize this as is what affects this text in here. Font weight, we want to leave this to 600 pixels. So we want to come out of that and we can see how this appears as. So coming down to our widget, I'm just going to drag and drop another heading into this column. Now in here, we can see we have no credit cards required and we have a button in there. So I'm just going to come down and add in a button into this column as well. Okay, so let's start out with this text in here. So I'm just going to make this no credit card required. Okay, so once we've done that, we want to style this text in here. So I'm just going to come down to style. And for our text color, we want to change this to hashtag 9C9AAA. So once we've done that, we want to come out of that. And in here for our typography, we want to select this pencil icon. And for our font family, we want to make this Roboto. So I'm just going to click on that and select Roboto. And for our font size, we want to make this 13 pixels. And for our font weight, we want to change this to 400. Now moving on to styling our button, we can simply click on our button and in here for our text, we can put in whatever we want to. So if you wanted to put in get plan, you can simply put that in there. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to stick with get started. So definitely you want to put in your payments page into this link in here. So whenever a visitor actually clicks on that, they are redirected to your payment page. Okay, so moving on to our alignment. If we select left, we can select center, we can select right. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to justify this. Now you can make adjustment to the size. So we can choose medium, we can choose large, we can choose extra large, but we're just going to stick with small. And in here, if you wanted to add in icons, you can simply select an icon and click on insert. And you can change the icon position to whatever you want to and also the icon spacing. But we're not going to be using icons in this video. So I'm just going to remove that and want to come down to style just so we style this button in here. So for our typography, we want to select this pencil icon. And for our font family, we want to change this to Nunito. Okay, so I'm just going to select that and for our font size, we want to make this 16 pixels. And for our font weight, we want to make this 800. So moving on, we want to change our text color to white, and our background color, we want to change this to hashtag 1B880. Okay, so once we've got that right, we want to move on to our border type. So I'm just going to select that and want to change this to double. And for our border width, we want to make this 4 pixels around. And for our border color, we want to change this to this exact color just to make sure this has a nice feel to it. So we're just going to change this to hashtag 002B44. Okay, moving on, we want to make our border radius to 3 pixels around. So I'm just going to add in 3 pixels. And for our padding, we want to make this 15 pixels around. So we can see how this appears as. Okay, so moving on, we want to duplicate this column into 4 places, just as we have here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to right click on this to select duplicate, right click on this, duplicate, and also duplicate. Now the next thing we want to do is to reduce the widget spacing between these columns. So I'm just going to click on this, and for our widget space, we want to make this 18 pixels. We want to click on the second and make this 18 pixels as well. The third, 18 pixels, and last, 18 pixels. So the next thing we want to do is to change our text in here. So I'm just going to make this $2.99. For our third column, we want to make this $5.99. And for our fourth column, we want to make this $9.99. Okay, so this is pretty much how it's gonna be looking like. Now this looks good. So the next thing we want to do is to make customizations to this column. As we can see here, we have border radius at the top. So I'm just gonna come back here and we want to come down to border. And for our border radius, I'm just going to unlink all values here. Since we want to add border radius just to the top, so I'm just going to make this 6 pixels to the top and 6 pixels to the right. So if we select something else, we can see that has taken effect. So coming down to our column, we want to add in paddings to the top, left, right, and bottom. So I'm just going to come down to advanced. And in here, we want to add in 40 pixels around. So I'm just going to increase this. And that's pretty much it for this section. So I'm just going to click on update. Now moving on to the second section, we can simply click on add new section and want to select this structure type. So I'm just going to come down to our widgets and want to drag and drop an inner section into this column. Now just as we did in here, we want to change our background color to this color we have here. So depending on your website branding, you can just make customizations to the color. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to stick with this. So I'm just going to click on this section and then come down to style, and for our background type we want to select classic, and in here for our color we want to select this icon and we want to change this to the same color we have in here. So I'm just going to change this to hashtag 002B44. Okay, so once we've done that, we want to come down to our widgets and want to add in a text into this column. Now moving on to customizing this, if we come down here, we can see we have website as our first text. So I'm just going to come back here and change this to website. Okay, so moving on to customizing this, I'm just going to come down to style, and for our text color, we want to select this icon and we want to change this to white. So for our typography, we want to select this pencil icon, and for our font family, we want to make this Roboto, and for our font size, we want to make this 20 pixels. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is to make customizations to this column. And in here, we want to change the background color to something a little bit light from what we have here. So I'm just going to click on this column and want to come down to style. And for our background type, we want to select classic. And in here, we want to change this to hashtag 24475D. Okay, so moving on to styling this column, as we can see, this is more geared towards the middle. So let's come back to our design canvas and we want to come down to advanced. And in here for our padding, we want to make this 20 pixels around. And this is pretty much how it's going to be looking like. Now coming down to our second column, this is going to be a little bit different because if we hover over this, we can see we have a nice feel to this. Now coming down to our pricing table, I'm just going to click on this icon, and in here I want to drag and drop another heading into this column. we're just going to make this one. So I'm just going to come down to style, and for our text color, we're going to make this white as well. And for our typography, I'm going to click on this pencil icon, and this time we're going to be changing this to Poppins instead of Roboto. So I'm just going to click on that, and for our font size, we want to make this 20 pixels just as we have here, and for our font weight, we want to make this 400, and that's pretty much it. So we want to come down to our column. Just as we make customizations to this, we want to come down to style, and for our background type, we want to select classic, and for our color, we want to change this to hashtag 24475D. Okay, so that's pretty much how it's going to be looking like. But in this case, we want to add a hover effect to this column. So I'm just going to click out of that and want to come down to hover this time. So for our background type, we want to select classic as well. And for our color, I want to change this to our background color in here. So I'm just going to change this to hashtag 002B44. Okay, so whenever we hover over this, we can see that nice effect is applied here. So coming down to advanced, we want to center align this. So I'm just going to make this 20 pixels around as well. So the next thing we want to do is to duplicate this section 4 times. So I'm just going to right click on this to select duplicate, right click, duplicate. So if we click out of this, we can see how this appears as. But if we come back here, we can see we have a demarcations between these lines. Now for us to be able to add that effect in here, we can simply select our columns, and in here for our margin, we want to add in 2 pixels. So the higher we increase this, the more space we have in between our columns. So I'm just going to reduce this to 2 pixels. So I'm just going to select the second column and make this 2 pixels around. Same with the third column, come down to advanced, make this 2 pixels around. And lastly, for this column, we're just going to select that, come down to advanced and make this 2 pixels around. Now if we click out of this, we can see how this appears as. Okay, so in here we have our text change. So we have 10 websites for this plan, and we have unlimited website for this plan. So let's change this up. So in here we have 10, and for this column we have unlimited, and also for this column we have unlimited. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to duplicate this 10 times. So I'm just going to duplicate this, and in here I want to change this up to storage. For this plan we have 5 GB, and for this plan we have 10 GB. For the third plan we do have 50 GB, and for our fourth plan we have unlimited. So I'm going to duplicate this again, and I'm just going to make customization to this column real quick. So once we've done that, for our next column, we are going to be making customizations to these columns using images. So I'm just going to come back here, and we want to duplicate this again. So I'm just going to right click and select duplicate. Now for this, we have cloud storage. And once we've done that, we can simply come down to our widgets, and in here we want to drag and drop our image widget into this column. So we want to come down to choose image, and want to select this icon and click on insert media. Now if you're wondering where to get icons like this, we can simply open up a new tab, and we can simply insert icons8.com. Now with this, you can be able to get thousands of icons. So let's say for example we search for cancel. We can simply click on search, and this is going to give us a wide varieties of icons we can pick from. We're not really going to be making much customizations, just to align this to the left, and I'm just going to delete this, and we can duplicate this to have precisely what we have here. So in here we have the good icons, which means we have our cloud storage enabled for this plan. So I'm just going to come down to our widgets, and I'm just going to drag and drop an image widget into this column, and want to click on choose image and select this icon and click on insert media. So want to align this to the left and want to delete this. So I'm just going to right click and select delete. So I'm just going to duplicate this and drag this into these columns. So I'm just going to delete this and delete this as well. The next thing I want to do is to duplicate this and make customizations to the text in here. So I'm just going to do that real quick to save time. So the last thing we want to do is to add in paddings all around. So we want to add in padding to the top, left, right, and bottom. So we added 40 pixels to the top, left, right, and bottom for this top section, and we want to apply the same in here just to make this align properly with what we have here. So this aligns properly with this, and this plan aligns with this, and so on and so forth. So we want to click on this column and want to come down to advanced. So we're selecting this column in here which contains this entire widget. So we want to click on this, and for our padding we want to make this 40 pixels all around. Okay, so if you wanted to remove the spacing at the top just to make this more closer to this top section, we can simply unlink all values here, and then we can reduce this to 20 pixels instead of 40 just for the top. So I'm just going to click on update. Now, once you're done making customization to the desktop responsiveness, you want to move on to making customizations to the tablet responsiveness. Now, for us to do that, we can simply come down to responsive mode. We want to select this icon, and in here, we want to click on tablet. Now we can see how this appears as. So first off, we can make customizations to our top column. I'm just going to click on this. So instead of having our mean height to 320, we can simply reduce this to say 280, and we can see how this appears as. So instead of having our text this big, we can simply click on this icon, and in here we can reduce this to 38. Now, instead of having this much space in between our columns, we can simply click on this. So instead of having 100 pixels in between these two sections, we can simply click on this and we can reduce this to 50 pixels instead. So the next thing we want to do is to reduce the spacing we put in for our desktop responsiveness. So I'm just going to click on this column, and instead of having 40 pixels all around, we can simply reduce this to 10 pixels. So making customizations to the text in here, we can simply click on this, and for our typography, we can simply reduce this to 11 pixels. Since we have a magic number of 11, which works well, we can simply click on this heading in the second column, come down to typography and make this 11 pixels. The same for the third. Come down to typography, make this 11, come down to the fourth, select typography, and then make this 11. And the same can still be applied for our buttons in here. So we want to come down to style, and for our padding, instead of having this at 15 pixels around, we can just make this 12 pixels. And the same can still be applied in here. So we can simply click on this, come down to style, and for our padding, make this 12 pixels. Click on this, come down to style, and for our padding, make this 12 pixels. And the same can still be applied here. So we had 40 pixels all around here. So we can click on this, and instead of having 40 pixels all around, we can just make this 10, just as we have in here. And we can see this looks a whole lot better. So if we wanted to make customizations to the text as well, we can simply click on this, come down to typography, and we can reduce this from 20 pixels, or we can make this 18 pixels instead. So I'm just going to do the same for these columns as well. Alright, so the only issue with this is the mobile responsiveness. So you would want to make the native pricing table for your mobile responsiveness instead of sticking with what we have here. So we can simply click on this, come down to advanced, come down to responsiveness, and then hide this on appearing on mobile, and then create a separate pricing table for your mobile responsiveness. So that's pretty much it for this video. If you got value from this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I will see you in the next one.